My name is Talia, and I'm 34 years old. After years of hard work in software development, I finally had everything I thought I wanted: a successful career, a beautiful home. I purchased myself and what I believed was a loving marriage to Marcus. We'd been together for 5 years, but lately things had changed. As I lay in bed battling an illness that had knocked me down for weeks, I never expected to hear those crushing words from his mouth. "You only drain my money and energy," she said while I was sick in the house I paid for. If you're curious about what happened next and where I am now, stick around. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and join me on this journey that changed everything. I grew up in a middle-class family in Minneapolis, where my parents instilled in me the value of education and hard work. They sacrificed to put me through college, where I discovered my passion for software development. The logical nature of coding made sense to my analytical mind, and I found I had a natural talent for creating elegant solutions to complex problems. After graduation, I threw myself into my career. While friends were out partying or dating, I was often working late, building my skills and reputation in the industry. By 28, I had risen to senior developer at a respected tech company, earning enough to purchase my dream home, a beautiful 3-bedroom craftsman with a wraparound porch in a quiet neighborhood. It was my proudest achievement, representing years of dedication and sacrifice. It was at an industry conference in Chicago that I first met Marcus. He was 30, charismatic, and working as a marketing executive for a competing firm. I was immediately drawn to his confident smile and the way he could command a room. During a networking mixer, he approached me after my presentation on user interface innovations. "Your approach to adaptive design is revolutionary," he said, his brown eyes twinkling with genuine interest. "I've never seen anyone break down complex concepts so clearly." That initial conversation lasted 3 hours, long after the event had ended. We discovered shared interests in classic films, hiking, and a mutual love for Thai food. What impressed me most was how Marcus seemed to truly see me, not just as a tech professional, but as a complete person with dreams and quirks and passions. Our romance progressed quickly. Weekend visits turned into lengthy phone calls every night. Within 6 months, Marcus relocated to Minneapolis, taking a position with a local marketing firm. Our relationship felt effortless. We challenged each other intellectually while providing emotional support that I'd never experienced before. "You're the most incredible woman I've ever met," Marcus would tell me, holding my face gently between his hands. "I can't believe how lucky I am to have found you." After a year of dating, Marcus proposed during a sunrise hike at our favorite state park. As the golden light spilled over the horizon, he dropped to one knee and presented a diamond ring that caught the morning rays. "Talia, you're my best friend and the love of my life. I want to build a future with you. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy streamed down my face as I accepted. The wedding was everything I'd dreamed of: intimate but elegant, surrounded by our closest friends and family. My father's toast still rings in my memory. "Marcus, you're getting not just a wife, but a partner in every sense of the word. Take care of my little girl's heart." Marcus nodded solemnly, promising to cherish me always. As we began our married life together in the home I'd purchased before our engagement, I felt complete. Though I had insisted on keeping the house in my name for practical reasons, I had excellent credit and a substantial down payment saved. We agreed our finances would otherwise be merged as we built our life together. The first signs of financial imbalance appeared subtly. Marcus would forget his wallet when we went out to dinner. His credit card would be declined for large purchases, which he attributed to bank errors. I didn't think much of these incidents, happily covering the expenses. "I'll pay you back next week," he'd promise with a grateful smile. Sometimes he did, often he didn't. 2 years into our marriage, Marcus lost his job when his company downsized. I remember how devastated he looked coming home that day, his confident posture replaced with slumped shoulders. "They let the entire marketing department go," he explained, voice hollow with shock. "I didn't even get to clean out my desk properly." I immediately wrapped him in my arms, assuring him that we would be fine. My job was stable, and I was due for a promotion. We had savings and Marcus was talented. Surely he would find a new position quickly. We're a team, I told him firmly. When one of us stumbles, the other is there to help. Take some time to process this, and then we'll make a plan together. Marcus seemed genuinely grateful for my support. In those early weeks of his unemployment, he took over household responsibilities while sending out resumes and networking with contacts. I worked extra hours to ensure our financial stability wasn't compromised coming home to home-cooked meals and a clean house. This is temporary, Marcus would assure me. I'm getting good feedback on my applications. Something will come through soon. Weeks turned into months, and gradually the home-cooked meals became takeout. The house grew messier. Marcus's explanations grew more elaborate. The job market was saturated. Companies were implementing hiring freezes. He was being told he was overqualified. Still, I maintained my optimism. Every marriage faces challenges, I reasoned. This was our for worse moment, and we would get through it together. I picked up additional consulting projects to supplement our income, often working 60-hour weeks. My body began to protest the constant stress and long hours, but I pushed through, believing things would improve. I didn't realize then that the foundation of our partnership was already cracking, or that my unwavering support would soon be taken for granted in ways I couldn't imagine. The first real disappointment came about 14 months into Marcus's unemployment. I had returned home early from work, fighting a migraine, hoping to lie down before dinner. As I entered our home quietly, I overheard Marcus on the phone in his office, the room we had designated as his job search headquarters. "Yeah, I know, man," he was saying, laughing casually. "Why would I take some entry-level position when Talia's making enough for both of us? She doesn't even complain about it." I froze in the hallway, my migraine suddenly forgotten. The conversation continued as Marcus detailed how he'd spent the day playing video games instead of attending a job fair we had specifically discussed that morning. He had left the house dressed in his interview suit, supposedly heading to network with potential employers. That night I carefully broached the subject over dinner, trying to maintain a supportive tone while expressing my concerns. "How was the job fair today? Did you make any good connections?" I asked. Marcus looked me directly in the eye. "It was a waste of time. Mostly retail positions and call center work. Nothing appropriate for someone at my level." The lie stung more than the joblessness. When I gently mentioned overhearing his phone conversation, his demeanor changed instantly. "You were spying on me," he accused, his voice rising. "I can't believe you don't trust me. Do you think I enjoy being unemployed? Do you think I want to depend on you financially?" Somehow, by the end of the conversation, I was apologizing to him for misunderstanding the situation and making him feel inadequate. This pattern would repeat itself countless times in the months that followed. The financial strain began to take a serious toll. One evening, while paying bills, I discovered Marcus had opened a new credit card in his name and racked up nearly $8,000 in debt, mostly on electronics, designer clothes, and online gaming subscriptions. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady as I held up the statement. "I didn't want to worry you," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "You're so stressed about money already. Besides, once I get a job, I'll pay it off quickly." "But Marcus, we agreed to discuss any major expenses. This isn't just about the money. It's about being partners and making decisions together." He sighed dramatically. "So now I need permission to buy things. Am I a child to you? That's not what I meant. You know what, Talia? Not everyone is as perfect with money as you are. Some of us need a little joy in our lives when everything else is falling apart. But I guess you wouldn't understand that working your dream job while I struggle every day with rejection." Once again, I found myself backpedaling, assuring him that I understood his need for occasional indulgences during a difficult time. I suggested we create a realistic budget together that would include some personal spending money for both of us while addressing the growing debt. "Whatever makes you happy," he said dismissively, effectively ending the conversation. As Marcus's unemployment stretched into its second year, my friends began expressing concern. My best friend Amber invited me to lunch, carefully choosing her words. "Talia, you look exhausted. Are you doing okay? Is Marcus still Looking for work? I immediately defended him. The job market is brutal right now. He's trying, it's just taking longer than expected. Amber hesitated before responding. I'm sure he is. It's just, Ryan saw him at the golf course 3 times last week, during business hours. My stomach nodded. Marcus had told me he was attending networking events those days. When I carefully raised the subject that evening, he exploded. So your friends are spying on me now? Is this what it's come to? I'm not allowed to take a mental health break? Do you know what constant rejection does to a person's psyche? Of course I understand needing breaks, I said. But you told me you were networking. Networking happens on the golf course too, Talia. God, you're so naive sometimes about how business works. His tone was condescending, making me doubt my own reasonable concerns. He didn't speak to me for 3 days afterward, creating an uncomfortable silence in our home. When he finally broke the silence, it was as if the incident had never happened, and I was so relieved by the return to normalcy that I didn't press the issue. The suggestion of couples therapy was perhaps my biggest miscalculation. After a particularly difficult week where I had discovered Marcus had borrowed money from our joint savings account without discussion, I gently proposed that we might benefit from professional guidance. A therapist might help us communicate better about these financial stresses, I suggested. This situation is hard on both of us in different ways. Marcus's face darkened. So now I need therapy because I'm unemployed. What's next? Talia, medication. Because I'm not the perfect husband bringing home a paycheck. That's not what I meant at all, I protested. I thought it might help us both. What would help is if you stopped treating me like I'm broken, he shouted. If you're so unhappy being the breadwinner, maybe you should have married some rich CEO instead of me. He stormed out of the house, returning hours later smelling of alcohol. I spent the night crying silently in our guest bedroom, wondering how we had reached this point. The next morning, Marcus acted as if nothing had happened, kissing my forehead before I left for work. Have a great day, babe. Love you. I stood at the door, keys in hand, feeling disoriented by the emotional whiplash. This was becoming our new normal. Confrontation, explosion, pretend nothing happened, repeat. Each cycle eroded my confidence and self-worth a little more, leaving me increasingly uncertain of my own perceptions. As we entered the 3rd year of our marriage, my health began to deteriorate noticeably. The chronic stress of supporting us financially, working excessive hours, and walking on eggshells emotionally had taken its toll. I developed persistent migraines that would leave me nauseated and sensitive to light for days. My immune system weakened, resulting in frequent colds and infections that lingered far longer than they should have. My doctor expressed concern during my annual checkup. Your blood pressure is elevated, Talia, and these recurring migraines are worrying. What's causing this level of stress in your life? I gave a sanitized version of our situation, downplaying the emotional aspects. She prescribed medication for the migraines and strongly recommended reducing my workload and finding healthy outlets for stress management. Your body is sending you warning signals, she cautioned. Ignoring them could lead to serious consequences. I promised to take her advice seriously, but the reality of our financial situation made cutting back at work impossible. If anything, I needed to work more, not less. A senior developer position had opened up at my company, a significant promotion that would mean greater responsibility, but also a substantial salary increase. Despite my health concerns, I applied and was selected after a rigorous interview process. When I shared the news with Marcus, his reaction was lukewarm at best. Great, he said, barely looking up from his phone. More money, but I guess that means even less time together, right? His lack of enthusiasm stung, but I tried to focus on the positive. The hours might be more demanding initially, but the pay increase will give us some breathing room. Maybe we can finally start building our savings back up. Marcus scoffed. Always about the money with you, isn't it? I was stunned by the unfairness of this accusation. That's not true. I'm thinking about our future, about getting back on solid financial ground. Whatever, he muttered, walking away from the conversation. The promotion did indeed come with longer hours initially as I worked to prove myself worthy of the position. There were nights I would come home after 10, exhausted, but proud of what I had accomplished, only to find Marcus irritated that dinner wasn't prepared, or that I wasn't available to watch a movie with him. "Some of us have been home alone all day," he would complain. "Must be nice to have somewhere important to be." During one of my rare sick days when a migraine had rendered me unable to even look at a computer screen, I discovered just how little Marcus contributed when I wasn't around. The kitchen was piled with unwashed dishes, laundry overflowed from the hampers, and Marcus seemed genuinely put out when I asked if he could make me some tea. "I was in the middle of something," he grumbled, gesturing toward the video game paused on our television. "I'm sorry." I apologized automatically. "I just can't get up right now without getting dizzy." He sighed dramatically before shuffling to the kitchen, returning with lukewarm tea in a mug that read, "World's Best Husband," an ironic gift from his mother the previous Christmas. "Thanks," I said, genuinely grateful for even this small effort. "You know," he replied, hovering in the doorway, "if you didn't work yourself to death, you probably wouldn't get these migraines so often." The comment landed like a slap. I wanted to remind him that I was working myself to death, to support us both that his golf outings and gaming equipment were funded by the very hours that were destroying my health. Instead, I remained silent, knowing from experience that such conversations only led to arguments I lacked the energy to endure. The financial situation continued to deteriorate despite my increased salary. Marcus had become increasingly bold in his spending, frequently making purchases without consultation. When a package containing an $800 drone arrived at our doorstep, I finally confronted him directly. "We can't afford this right now, Marcus. We're still paying off your credit card debt, and the property taxes are due next month." "We can't afford it, or you don't want me to have it," he challenged. "You just got a raise, Talia. Don't be so stingy." "This isn't about being stingy, it's about being responsible. My raise is already allocated to catching up on our savings and paying down debt." "Your savings," he corrected bitterly. "Your debt. Your house. Sometimes I wonder why you even keep me around." "That's not fair," I protested, feeling my chest tighten with anxiety. "I've never thought of anything as just mine. We're supposed to be partners." "Partners?" he laughed harshly. "Is that what you call this? You control all the money, make all the decisions, and I'm just supposed to sit here gratefully waiting for whatever scraps you decide to throw my way." His revisionist history was staggering. The fact that he had contributed virtually nothing financially for years while freely spending the money I earned was somehow twisted into me being controlling. Yet a small voice inside me wondered if there was truth to his accusations. Was I too focused on financial security? Was I somehow emasculating him by being the provider? These doubts plagued me as my health continued to decline. The migraines increased in frequency, sometimes leaving me bedridden for entire weekends. My new position, which should have been exciting and fulfilling, became an endurance test as I pushed through exhaustion and pain to meet deadlines and manage my team effectively. Through it all, Marcus's behavior became increasingly erratic. He would vacillate between periods of apparent remorse, where he would make small gestures like bringing me coffee in bed or ordering takeout, and stretches of complete disengagement where he would disappear for hours without explanation or spend entire days gaming with online friends, headphones on, oblivious to my presence or needs. I began to feel like a ghost in my own home, invisible, except when needs or demands were directed at me. The vibrant, intellectually stimulating partnership I had envisioned when we married had deteriorated into something I barely recognized, and my health was collapsing under the weight of it all. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in April. I had been pushing myself particularly hard at work, leading a critical project launch while battling increasingly debilitating migraines. That morning I had forced myself out of bed despite feeling dizzy and nauseated, determined not to let my team down during the final phase of implementation. By noon, my vision was blurring at the edges and I could barely focus on my computer screen. My assistant Layla noticed me squinting at an email I'd been trying to read for 10 minutes. "Talia, you don't look well at all," she said, genuine concern in her voice. "Maybe you should go home and rest." "I can't," I insisted. "The client presentation is tomorrow, And we still need to fix those bugs in the navigation system. Jordan and I can handle the bugs, she assured me. You've prepared us well. Right now, you need to take care of yourself. As if to emphasize her point, a wave of dizziness washed over me and I gripped the edge of my desk to steady myself. Layla's face blurred before me. I'm calling you a car, she said firmly. You're in no condition to drive. I don't remember much of the ride home. The driver had to help me to my front door where I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking. Inside, I called out weakly for Marcus before remembering he had mentioned something about meeting friends for lunch. Somehow I made it to our bedroom and collapsed fully clothed onto the bed. The room seemed to spin around me and my skin felt alternately hot and cold. I managed to send Marcus a text before the phone slipped from my grasp. Came home sick. Feel really bad. Can you pick up my prescription? I drifted in and out of consciousness, vaguely aware of the changing light in the room as afternoon turned to evening. At some point I heard the front door open and close, followed by the sound of the television turning on downstairs. Marcus, I called weakly. Can you come up? There was no response. I tried to get up to get water, but as soon as I stood, the room tilted violently and I collapsed back onto the bed. My throat was parched, my head pounding so severely that even the faint light filtering through the curtains was agonizing. I'm not sure how much time passed before I heard footsteps on the stairs. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression annoyed rather than concerned. You left your car at work, he stated flatly. How am I supposed to get around tomorrow? I'm sorry. I whispered, my voice barely audible. I couldn't drive. I think I need to go to the doctor. I've never felt this bad before. He leaned against the doorframe, making no move to come closer. You probably just need to sleep it off. Did you take your medication? It's at the pharmacy. I asked if you could pick it up. I managed, gesturing weakly toward my phone. I didn't see any message, he replied defensively. Besides, I've been busy today. I closed my eyes against a fresh wave of pain, too sick to argue. Could you please bring me some water? And maybe check if we have any pain relievers in the bathroom. Marcus sighed audibly, but disappeared down the hall. He returned with a half-filled glass of water and 2 over-the-counter pain pills that I knew would do little against the severity of my migraine. Here, he said, placing them on the nightstand, rather than helping me sit up. Anything else you need? Jason and the guys are waiting for me online. We have a tournament tonight. I stared at him in disbelief. You're going to play games? I can barely stand up, Marcus. I might need to go to the emergency room. You're being dramatic, he dismissed. It's just a headache. Take the pills and get some sleep. It's not just a headache, I protested weakly. Something's really wrong. My doctor warned me about working too much, he interrupted, which you insist on doing anyway. So this is kind of on you, isn't it? I felt tears welling in my eyes, both from the physical pain and the stunning lack of empathy from the man who had once promised to stand by me in sickness and in health. Please, I whispered. I need help. Marcus checked his watch impatiently. Look, the tournament starts in 20 minutes. Get some rest, and if you still feel terrible in the morning, I'll take you to urgent care before my golf game. He turned to leave and something broke inside me. Marcus, please don't leave me alone like this. I'm really scared. He paused in the doorway, his back to me. When he spoke, his voice was cold in a way I had never heard before. You know what, Talia? You only drain my money and energy. I can't even have one night to myself without you creating some crisis. The words hung in the air between us, sharp and irretrievable. In that moment, despite the physical agony I was experiencing, I felt something even more painful. The death of whatever love might have remained between us. This is my house, I said quietly. The house I paid for, and you've contributed nothing but complaints for years. His laugh was bitter. There it is. Finally the truth comes out. Poor Talia supporting her useless husband. Is that what you tell your friends, your coworkers? I've defended you to everyone, I whispered, even when they could all see what I couldn't. Whatever, he muttered, already turning away. I'll be downstairs. Try not to disturb me. As the door closed behind him, I lay in the darkness, too weak to even reach for the water he had left. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. I had worked myself to the point of physical collapse to support us, only to be abandoned at my moment of greatest need. With trembling fingers, I reached for my phone and dialed the one person I knew would come without question: my sister Naomi. "I need help," I managed to say when she answered. "Can you come?" Her response was immediate. "I'm on my way. Should I call an ambulance?" "Please," I whispered finally, allowing the tears to fall freely. "And Naomi, use your key. Don't bother telling Marcus you're coming. He's busy with his video games." Even in my semi-delirious state, I knew something fundamental had changed. The illusion I had clung to for so long had finally shattered, and despite my physical weakness, I felt the first stirring of a different kind of strength beginning to take its place. The hospital lights were harsh against my sensitive eyes as the emergency room doctor examined me. My sister Naomi stood beside the bed, her face tight with worry and barely contained anger. The paramedics had found Marcus in the living room, headphones on, completely oblivious to their arrival. He had seemed annoyed rather than concerned when they interrupted his game to inform him his wife was being transported to the hospital. "Your blood pressure is dangerously high," the doctor informed me, "and you're showing signs of severe dehydration and exhaustion. When was the last time you had a full night's sleep or a proper meal?" I couldn't remember. The past weeks had blurred together in a haze of work pain and increasing isolation. "We're admitting you," she continued. "You need intravenous fluids medication and monitoring. This level of physical distress indicates something serious." As they prepared to move me to a room, Marcus finally appeared in the doorway, looking inconvenienced rather than concerned. "Is this really necessary?" he asked, not addressing me but the medical staff. "It's just a migraine. She gets them all the time." The doctor turned to him with a professionally neutral expression. "Sir, your wife is experiencing severe hypertension, dehydration, and symptoms consistent with extreme physical stress. This is potentially life-threatening if left untreated." Naomi, who had been uncharacteristically quiet until now, finally spoke. "Maybe if someone had actually cared for her instead of playing video games while she was collapsing, we wouldn't be here." Marcus had the audacity to look offended. "You don't know what it's like living with her. Everything's about work, money, responsibility. It's exhausting." "Exhausting," Naomi repeated incredulously. "My sister has been working herself to death to support you for years, and you have the nerve to say she's exhausting." "Please," I whispered, the arguing intensifying my pain. "Not here." The nurse administering my IV gave Marcus a cold look. "Sir, if you can't be supportive, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Your wife needs rest and calm." To my surprise, Marcus didn't protest. He simply shrugged, muttered something about "coming back tomorrow," and walked out. He didn't touch me, didn't ask how I was feeling, didn't offer a single word of comfort or concern. "I'll stay with you," Naomi said firmly, taking my hand. "You're not alone, Talia." I spent 3 days in the hospital. The doctors diagnosed me with stress-induced hypertension, severe migraines, and the early stages of adrenal fatigue. The treatment plan was clear: significant lifestyle changes, reduced stress, proper nutrition, and adequate rest. "Your body is essentially in revolt," my doctor explained. "It's been running on emergency reserves for too long. If you don't make changes now, the consequences could be severe and permanent." Marcus visited once briefly, bringing a generic get-well card that still had the price sticker on the envelope. He seemed uncomfortable in the hospital environment and left after less than 20 minutes, claiming he had an appointment he couldn't miss. Naomi, by contrast, barely left my side. She brought comfortable clothes from home arranged for her neighbor to care for her cats, and slept in the uncomfortable visitor's chair despite my protests. During one of our quiet conversations, while I was finally strong enough to sit up and eat a proper meal, she broached the subject we had both been avoiding. "Talia, this can't continue. He's destroying you." I stared down at my hospital-issued juice cup. "I know." "Do you?" she pressed gently. because from the outside it looks like you've been making excuses for him for years. He doesn't work, doesn't contribute, spends your money, and then has the audacity to complain about you. And now when you're literally hospitalized, he can barely be bothered to visit. Tears welled in my eyes. I kept thinking it would get better, that he was just going through a rough patch. A 3-year rough patch. Naomi's voice was skeptical but kind. This isn't a rough patch, sis. This is who he is. The truth of her words settled heavily in my chest. I feel so stupid. Everyone could see it but me. Not stupid, she corrected firmly. Hopeful, committed, loyal to a fault. Those are beautiful qualities, Talia. He just took advantage of them. When I was finally discharged, the doctor insisted I take at least 2 weeks off work for recovery. My team was supportive, with Layla organizing a schedule to keep projects moving in my absence. Naomi drove me home, having already informed Marcus of our arrival time. I expected the house to be in disarray after my absence, but to my surprise it was relatively tidy. Marcus had apparently made some effort, though I would later discover this was primarily limited to the main living areas. Our bedroom and bathroom remained untouched, my clothes from the day I collapsed, still scattered where I had left them. "Welcome home," Marcus said, his tone suggesting he expected praise for the minimal cleaning he had done. "Feeling better?" "Somewhat," I replied cautiously. "The doctor says I need complete rest for at least 2 weeks. His expression flickered with annoyance. 2 weeks? What about work?" "I'm on medical leave," I explained. "My team is covering for me." "Right," he said, already turning his attention back to his phone. "Well, good timing, I guess. I've got that golf tournament this weekend, so you'll have plenty of quiet time." Naomi, who had been bringing in my bags, froze in the doorway. "Are you serious right now? Your wife just got out of the hospital." Marcus looked genuinely confused. "What, the tournament's been planned for months? It's not like she needs me to sit here and watch her sleep." I placed a hand on Naomi's arm, seeing her prepare for a confrontation I didn't have the energy for. "It's fine, Nai. We can talk about it later." My sister reluctantly backed down, helping me settle into the guest bedroom I had requested, rather than the master I shared with Marcus. I claimed it was because the guest room was darker and quieter, better for my recovery, but in truth, I couldn't bear the thought of lying beside him after everything that had happened. That first night home, I lay awake listening to the sounds of Marcus playing games downstairs, his occasional shouts of triumph or frustration drifting up through the floor. Naomi had wanted to stay, but I had insisted she return to her own home and responsibilities, promising to call if I needed anything. Now, alone with my thoughts in the quiet darkness, I began to formulate a plan. The clarity that had begun in the hospital crystallized into certainty this marriage was over. The only question remaining was how to extricate myself with minimum further damage to my health and well-being. The next morning, while Marcus was still asleep, I made 2 important calls. The first was to my company's HR department, requesting information about our employee assistance program, specifically regarding legal referrals. The second was to a locksmith scheduled for a day, when Marcus would be at his golf tournament. Then I began slowly and methodically to document everything: our financial records for the past 3 years, the property deed showing the house in my name only, the credit card statements revealing Marcus's spending patterns, text messages and emails that demonstrated the pattern of emotional manipulation. Each document I gathered strengthened my resolve. This wasn't a rash decision born of illness or anger. It was the long overdue recognition of an untenable situation. As I organized the evidence of our dysfunctional relationship, I felt a strange calm replacing the anxiety that had been my constant companion for years. 3 days into my recovery, while I was sitting on the patio enjoying the spring sunshine, Marcus approached with an unexpected request. "I've been thinking," he began, an artificial casualness in his tone. "Maybe we should put my name on the house deed. You know, for security." I regarded him steadily, noticing for the first time the calculation behind his seemingly innocent expression. "Why now?" He shrugged, not quite meeting my eyes. "Just seems like the right time. With your health scare and everything, it made me realize we should have our affairs in order." "Our affairs," I repeated slowly. You mean the house that I purchased with my savings before we were married? The house that you haven't contributed a dollar toward in mortgage payments for the past 3 years? His expression hardened. There it is again. The money thing. I contribute in other ways, Talia. Not everything is about financial contribution. What ways exactly? I asked, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. Please enlighten me. Emotional support, he shot back. Being here for you. Managing the household while you work. The audacity of his claim was so staggering that I actually laughed, wincing as the sudden movement triggered a twinge of pain in my head. Emotional support. Like telling me I'm draining your money and energy while I'm too sick to stand, managing the household, Marcus, when I came home from the hospital. There were 3-day-old dishes in the sink, and you hadn't even picked up the clothes I was wearing when I collapsed. You're being unfair, he protested. I cleaned before you came home, and I've brought you water and medicine every day. The bare minimum isn't support, Marcus. It's the bare minimum. Something in my tone must have alerted him that this conversation wasn't proceeding as he had anticipated. His approach shifted his expression, softening into the charming smile that had once made my heart race. Look, I know I haven't been perfect. This situation has been hard on both of us. But we're a team, right? What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. Isn't that what marriage is about? In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what I had been blind to for so long. The man I had fallen in love with, the equal partner I thought I had married, had never actually existed. In his place stood someone who viewed me not as a beloved spouse, but as a resource to be depleted. No, Marcus, I said quietly. That's not what our marriage has been about at all, and I think you know that. His facade cracked, revealing a flash of the anger that always lurked beneath the surface. What's that supposed to mean? It means the answer is no. I will not be adding your name to the deed. Not now, not ever. He stared at me for a long moment as if seeing me for the first time. Perhaps he was. The compliant, self-doubting woman who had tolerated his behavior for years was being replaced by someone with boundaries and clarity. Fine, he finally snapped. Be that way, but don't expect things to just continue as they have been. I deserve respect in this relationship too. As he stormed off, I remained in my chair, face turned toward the sun, feeling the first real peace I had experienced in years. The decision was made. Now I just needed to gather my strength for what would come next. The 2 weeks of my medical leave became a period of quiet preparation. While Marcus assumed I was simply recovering, I was methodically building the foundation for my new life. Each day, while he was out with friends or absorbed in his gaming, I made progress on my exit strategy. My first step was consulting with a divorce attorney recommended through my company's employee assistance program. Sandra Michaels was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who listened attentively as I detailed the history of my marriage, occasionally jotting notes in a leather-bound notebook. From a legal standpoint, you're in a relatively strong position, she informed me after I had finished. The house is solely in your name. You've maintained separate finances for most major assets, and Kentucky is not a community property state. However, he could still make claims on assets acquired during the marriage, including your retirement accounts and investments. What about alimony? I asked, the word feeling strange in my mouth. Sandra's expression was grim. He could certainly request it, especially given the length of his unemployment and the lifestyle you've been supporting. But the court typically considers many factors, including the behavior of both parties and the reason for the unemployment. His refusal to seek work despite being able-bodied would work in your favor. Armed with this information, I began securing my finances. I opened new accounts at a different bank, transferred my direct deposits, and ensured Marcus had no access to my primary assets. I consulted with a financial advisor about protecting my retirement accounts and investments during the divorce process. Physically, I was gradually regaining my strength. The medication had reduced the frequency and intensity of my migraines, and simply being away from work had allowed my body to begin healing from years of chronic stress. I took short walks around the neighborhood each day, venturing a little farther as my stamina improved. During one of these walks, I ran into our neighbor Eleanor, a retired teacher who had always been kind but somewhat distant. Talia, dear, I heard you were in the hospital. Are you all right? We sat on her porch swing sharing iced tea as I gave her a sanitized version of my health issues. What surprised me was what she shared in return. I've been concerned about you for some time, she confessed. I often see your husband leaving with golf clubs while you're at work, or his friends coming over for what sound like rather boisterous game nights. Last month, when you were working late, I noticed a young woman visiting who stayed quite late. She patted my hand reassuringly. Probably nothing, of course, but I thought you should know. This new information should have hurt more than it did. Instead, it merely confirmed what I already knew. My marriage had been a sham for longer than I had been willing to admit. I thanked Eleanor for her concern and continued my walk feeling strangely liberated rather than devastated by this potential evidence of infidelity. Back home, I began the process of documenting the contents of the house, photographing valuable items, and creating an inventory of what had been purchased before the marriage versus during it. I discreetly secured my important documents, birth certificate, passport, social security card, and irreplaceable personal items like family jewelry and photographs, storing them in a safe deposit box at my new bank. Throughout this process, Marcus remained oblivious, interpreting my quiet focus as continued recovery. If anything, he seemed relieved that I wasn't pressing him about job searching or household contributions. He continued his regular activities, golf, gaming, meeting friends, while occasionally bringing me tea or asking perfunctorily how I was feeling. One evening, about 10 days into my leave, he surprised me by suggesting we watch a movie together. Like old times, he said, a hint of his former charm returning. I'll even make popcorn. For a moment, I was tempted to pretend, to slide back into the comfortable illusion that had sustained me for years. It would be so easy to ignore the truth, to accept this small gesture as evidence that things could improve. But the memory of lying sick while he dismissed my needs remained too fresh, the words, "You only drain my money and energy," still echoing in my mind. I'm actually pretty tired, I replied. Maybe another night. A flash of irritation crossed his face before he shrugged indifferently. Suit yourself. I'll probably call the guys then. The distance between us had become a chasm, but only I seemed aware of its true depth. In his mind, we were simply going through a rough patch that would eventually resolve itself, allowing him to return to the comfortable arrangement where I provided while he consumed. As my medical leave neared its end, I finalized my plans. The locksmith had already changed the exterior locks, with Marcus none the wiser, since I had kept his existing key working. My attorney had prepared the divorce papers, which sat in a sealed envelope in my desk drawer. I had spoken with my sister and 2 close friends, arranging for their support during what I anticipated would be a difficult confrontation. The day before I was scheduled to return to work, I made one final call to Marcus's parents. We had always had a cordial, if not particularly close, relationship, and I felt they deserved to hear directly from me rather than whatever version of events Marcus would inevitably present. His mother, Patricia, answered on the 3rd ring. Talia, what a lovely surprise. How are you feeling? Marcus mentioned you'd been under the weather. Under the weather. As if I had a mild cold rather than a health crisis that had landed me in the hospital. It was so typical of how Marcus minimized anything that might reflect poorly on him. Actually, Patricia, that's part of why I'm calling, I began carefully. I wanted to let you know that I'll be filing for divorce from Marcus tomorrow. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds before she responded. I see. May I ask why? Has something happened? I took a deep breath. Many things over many years. The most recent being that when I was seriously ill, Marcus told me I only drain his money and energy, despite the fact that I've been the sole financial provider for our household for over 3 years, while he's refused to seek employment. Another long pause. I had no idea things were so difficult between you. Marcus always speaks as if everything is wonderful. I'm sure he does, I replied, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from my voice. I wanted to tell you directly because I respect you and Robert, and because I suspect Marcus's version of events may differ significantly from reality. "Thank you for your honesty," she said finally. "I'm sorry it's come to this. We've always thought highly of you, Talia." After ending the call, I sat in the quiet of the guest room that had become my sanctuary, mentally rehearsing the confrontation to come. Tomorrow would mark the end of one chapter of my life and the beginning of another. Despite the sadness and sense of failure that inevitably accompanied the end of a marriage, I felt a growing certainty that I was making the right decision, not just for my financial and emotional well-being, but for my very survival. The woman who had entered this marriage full of hope and trust no longer existed. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and unwilling to accept anything less than the respect and partnership she deserved. Tomorrow, Marcus would meet this new version of me, and nothing would ever be the same again. The morning of the confrontation arrived with an unusual sense of calm settling over me. I had slept better than I had in months, perhaps, because the burden of indecision had finally been lifted. I dressed carefully in a blue blouse that had always made me feel confident, applied light makeup to cover the lingering shadows under my eyes, and went downstairs to prepare coffee. Marcus stumbled into the kitchen around 9, hair disheveled, wearing the same t-shirt he'd had on the day before. He seemed surprised to see me up and dressed. "You're looking better," he commented, pouring himself coffee. "Ready to go back to work tomorrow." "Actually, we need to talk," I replied, my voice steady. "Could you join me in the living room in about an hour? There's something important we need to discuss." He looked momentarily confused, then shrugged. "Sure, whatever. Let me grab a shower first." While he was upstairs, I sent the pre-arranged text to my support team. Within 45 minutes, Naomi and my friend Amber arrived, followed shortly by Sandra, my attorney. I had briefed them all on what to expect and the role I needed each of them to play. This wasn't about creating a spectacle or humiliating Marcus. It was about ensuring my safety and preventing him from manipulating the situation as he had so many times before. When Marcus came downstairs and found 4 women seated in the living room, he stopped short, his expression cycling rapidly from confusion to wariness. "What's going on?" he demanded, remaining standing in the doorway. "Who are these people?" "You know my sister Naomi and my friend Amber?" I said calmly. "And this is Sandra Michaels, my attorney." "Attorney?" he repeated, his voice rising. "What the hell is this, Talia?" I gestured to the empty armchair across from me. "Please sit down, Marcus. This will be easier if we can discuss it civilly." He remained standing, arms crossed defensively across his chest. "There's nothing to discuss with lawyers present. Whatever this is, we can talk about it privately." "Not this time," I replied firmly. "I've made a decision, and I want to be clear about what happens next." Sandra opened her briefcase and removed a manila envelope, which she handed to me. I took a deep breath, centering myself before continuing. "I'm filing for divorce," I stated, my voice clear and unwavering. "These are the papers. You can review them with your own attorney, but the key points are straightforward. I'm not seeking any ongoing financial support from you, and I'm not asking for anything that doesn't legally belong to me. In return, I expect you to vacate this house within 30 days and make no claims on my retirement accounts or future earnings." Marcus's face flushed dark red, his eyes narrowing to slits. "You can't just throw me out of my own home." "It's not your home, Marcus," I replied, maintaining my composure. "The deed is solely in my name. The mortgage is solely in my name, and every payment has come from my account. You have contributed nothing to this property financially for the entirety of our marriage." "That's bullshit," he exploded. "I'm your husband. I have rights." Sandra spoke for the first time, her tone professional but firm. "Mr. Williams, while marriage does create certain rights regarding property, those rights are not absolute. The documentation we've prepared clearly shows that this property was purchased by Ms. Reed prior to your marriage and has been maintained exclusively through her income. Additionally, we have extensive documentation regarding your refusal to seek employment and your pattern of financial exploitation." Marcus turned his fury toward me. "So this is your plan, ambush me with lawyers and kick me out on the street after everything I've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Marcus?" I asked quietly. When I was so sick I couldn't stand you called me dramatic and went to play video games. When I was hospitalized, you visited once for 20 minutes. For 3 years you've lived off my income while criticizing me for working too much. You've spent money we couldn't afford while contributing nothing. Oh, here we go with the money again, he sneered. Always about the finances with you as if emotional support means nothing. Emotional support? Naomi interjected incredulously. Is that what you call telling my sister she drains your money and energy while she's collapsed with a migraine? Is that what you call abandoning her when she needed emergency medical care? Marcus ignored her, focusing his rage on me. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Saint Talia working herself to death while her lazy husband does nothing. You have no idea what it's like trying to live up to your impossible standards. For a moment I felt the familiar pull of self-doubt, the habitual urge to apologize and smooth things over. But the woman I had become in recent weeks recognized this for what it was. Another manipulation tactic designed to shift blame and avoid accountability. This isn't about perfection, Marcus, I replied evenly. It's about basic respect and partnership, neither of which has existed in our marriage for a very long time. I'm not asking for an argument or trying to punish you. I'm simply stating what will happen next. I handed him the divorce papers, which he refused to take, letting them fall to the floor between us. You'll regret this, he warned, his voice low and menacing. You think you can just discard me and move on. I know things about you, Talia. Things your precious coworkers and clients wouldn't appreciate hearing. The threat hung in the air, but instead of fear, I felt an odd sense of relief. This was the real Marcus, the one I had glimpsed in unguarded moments over the years. Vindictive, petty, and willing to cause harm when he didn't get his way. That sounds remarkably like a threat, Sandra observed, making a note in her legal pad. I should inform you that blackmail or defamation would have serious legal consequences, Mr. Williams. Oh, for God's sake, I'm not threatening anyone, Marcus backpedaled quickly. I'm just saying she's making a mistake. We can work through this. There's nothing to work through, I said with finality. The marriage is over. You have 30 days to find new accommodations and remove your personal belongings from the property. After that time, anything remaining will be considered abandoned. And where am I supposed to go? He demanded. You know I don't have the money for my own place. You might consider getting a job, Amber suggested, mildly speaking for the first time. I hear they're useful for generating income. Marcus's face contorted with rage. You think this is funny? My life is falling apart and you're making jokes. Your life has been subsidized by my sister for years, Naomi pointed out. Maybe it's time it fell apart a little so you can rebuild it properly, on your own efforts instead of hers. For a moment I thought Marcus might physically lash out his fists, clenching at his sides. Instead he turned back to me, his expression shifting to one I recognized all too well. The wounded victim, the misunderstood husband. Talia, please, he said, his voice suddenly soft. I know I've made mistakes. I know I haven't been the husband you deserve. But we can fix this. Let me prove to you that I can change. 3 weeks ago, those words might have swayed me. The desperate hope that had kept me in this dysfunctional relationship might have seized on this apparent contrition as evidence that things could improve. But the woman sitting before him now saw through the performance to the emptiness behind it. No, Marcus, I said simply. It's too late for that. I've made my decision. His facade crumbled instantly, rage replacing the manufactured remorse. Fine, have it your way. But don't think this will be easy. I'll fight you for everything I'm entitled to. Half of this house, half your retirement alimony. You'll be paying me for years. Sandra cleared her throat pointedly. Mr. Williams, before you make statements, you might regret I should inform you that we have thoroughly documented your refusal to seek employment despite being fully capable of working. We have records of your excessive spending on non-necessities while contributing nothing to household expenses. We have medical documentation linking Ms. Reed's serious health issues directly to the stress of supporting you financially while receiving no support in return. Additionally, we have witness statements regarding your neglect during her recent medical crisis. She paused, allowing this information to sink in before continuing. If you choose to contest this divorce or make unreasonable demands, we are prepared to present all of this evidence in court. I would strongly advise you to consult with your own attorney before deciding on that course of action." The color drained from Marcus's face as he realized the precariousness of his position. The bluster that had served him so well in our private arguments was useless against the cold reality of legal documentation and objective witnesses. "This is unbelievable," he muttered more to himself than to us. "Absolutely unbelievable." "I've had the locks changed," I informed him, maintaining my composure despite the emotional turmoil beneath the surface. "I'll provide you with a new key which will work until the 30-day period expires. After that, you will no longer have access to the property." "You changed the locks," he repeated incredulously. "In my own home." "My home," I corrected gently but firmly, "which I am allowing you to remain in for 30 days as a courtesy." For a moment, Marcus stood frozen, seemingly unable to process that his comfortable arrangement was truly ending. Then, without another word, he snatched his car keys from the entry table and stormed out, slamming the door with enough force to rattle the windows. As the sound of his car engine faded down the street, I exhaled slowly, feeling as if I had been holding my breath for years rather than minutes. Naomi moved to sit beside me on the couch, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You did it," she said softly. "I'm so proud of you." I nodded, unable to speak, as the emotional weight of the confrontation finally hit me. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Not tears of regret or even sadness, but of release. The chains I had carried for so long had finally been broken, and though the road ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges, I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was on the right path. "What happens now?" I asked Sandra, wiping my eyes. "Now," she replied with a small, satisfied smile, "you begin rebuilding your life on your own terms, and I help ensure that no one, especially not Marcus, stands in your way." The months following my confrontation with Marcus unfolded in ways I could never have anticipated. The 30-day period I had granted him to move out became a strange limbo of avoidance and occasional passive-aggressive gestures. He would leave dishes in the sink for days, deliberately use all the hot water before my shower, or play music loudly late at night. I recognized these behaviors for what they were: the petty revenge of someone who had lost control and was desperate to provoke a reaction. I refused to engage, maintaining a polite but distant demeanor during our infrequent interactions. When he attempted to draw me into arguments, I would simply state, "I'm not discussing this," and remove myself from the situation. This new boundary setting infuriated him more than any confrontation could have. True to his word, Marcus initially contested the divorce, demanding half the value of the house and substantial alimony. His attorney, after reviewing the documentation Sandra had compiled, advised him to reconsider this approach. Within 3 weeks, he had grudgingly accepted the original terms, though not without a final attempt at emotional manipulation. "I really loved you, you know," he said the day he signed the papers, his expression a studied mixture of sadness and resignation. "I would have done anything for you." "Except get a job," I replied quietly. "Or take me to the hospital when I needed it. Or contribute to our partnership in any meaningful way." He had no response to this, and we completed the signing in silence. The day Marcus finally moved out, exactly 30 days after our confrontation, I stood in the doorway watching as he loaded the last of his belongings into a friend's truck. He paused before getting into the passenger seat, turning to look at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. "You'll regret this," he said, not as a threat this time, but as if stating a simple fact. "No one will ever love you like I did." I considered many possible responses, pointing out that his version of love had nearly destroyed my health, or that what he called love, most people would call exploitation. Instead, I simply said, "I hope you find what you're looking for, Marcus." As the truck pulled away, I closed the door on that chapter of my life and turned to face my empty house. Empty not in a hollow, echoing way, but with the liberating emptiness of a canvas awaiting new creation. The physical recovery from years of chronic stress was a gradual process. My doctor had warned me that the damage couldn't be undone overnight, and she was right. The migraines didn't disappear completely, but their frequency and intensity diminished significantly. My blood pressure stabilized within normal ranges, and the perpetual exhaustion that had been my constant companion began to lift. I established new routines focused on self-care and balance. Morning yoga, regular meals, evenings spent reading or connecting with friends, rather than answering work emails until midnight. I began setting firm boundaries at work as well, delegating appropriately and leaving the office at reasonable hours. To my surprise, this didn't damage my career as I had feared. If anything, my team respected me more for modeling healthy work-life boundaries. My boss, after an initial period of adjustment, acknowledged that my more sustainable approach had actually improved my overall productivity and leadership. "You seem more present now," she observed during my performance review 6 months after the divorce was finalized. "More focused and decisive. Whatever changes you've made in your personal life clearly agree with you." Financially, the divorce had less impact than I had anticipated. Without Marcus's constant draining of resources, my savings began to rebuild quickly. I consulted with a financial advisor to create a solid plan for retirement and investments goals that had seemed impossibly distant during my marriage. The emotional healing was more complex than the physical or financial recovery. There were days when doubts would creep in. Had I given up too easily? Could the marriage have been saved if I'd tried harder? Was I somehow deficient for failing to inspire Marcus to be a better partner? Therapy helped me recognize these thoughts for what they were: the lingering effects of years of gaslighting and manipulation. My therapist, Dr. Rivera, guided me through the process of understanding the dynamics that had allowed the relationship to become so unhealthy. "You were caught in a classic cycle of codependency," she explained during one particularly illuminating session. "Your natural empathy and desire to help became weapons used against you. The more you gave, the more he took, until giving became your default mode even when it was destroying you." "I still don't understand how I let it happen," I admitted. "I'm not stupid. I'm successful in my career. How did I miss what was happening in my own marriage?" "Intelligence has nothing to do with it," she assured me. "These patterns develop gradually, with each small compromise making the next one easier to accept. The human capacity for adaptation is remarkable. We can normalize almost anything if it happens incrementally enough." Over time, I came to forgive myself for the years spent in that dysfunctional relationship. I recognized that my loyalty and commitment, while admirable qualities in a healthy partnership, had been exploited in ways I couldn't have anticipated when I said my wedding vows. Approximately 9 months after Marcus moved out, I received an unexpected email from his mother, Patricia. We hadn't communicated since a brief, awkward exchange at the finalization of the divorce. "Dear Talia," she wrote, "I hope this message finds you well. I've hesitated to reach out, unsure if my contact would be welcome, but I felt compelled to do so after recent events. Marcus has been living with us since shortly after your separation. His version of events, as you predicted, differed significantly from what I now believe to be the truth." She went on to describe how Marcus had failed to find employment despite her and Robert's encouragement, how he had drained their retirement savings with various emergencies, and how his behavior had become increasingly entitled and demanding. "We finally had to ask him to leave last month," she continued. "It was one of the hardest decisions we've ever made, but we realized we were enabling patterns that would never allow him to become the man we raised him to be. I want to apologize for not seeing sooner what you endured, and to thank you for having the courage to do what we could not until now." The email concluded with wishes for my happiness and health with no expectation of response. I sat staring at my screen for a long time after reading it, experiencing a complex mixture of vindication, sadness, and a strange sense of closure. I did eventually reply, thanking her for reaching out and wishing the best for her and Robert. I expressed hope that this difficult decision might ultimately lead to positive change for Marcus, though I harbored private doubts about his capacity for growth without professional intervention. As the 1-year anniversary of my hospital stay approached, the event that had catalyzed the end of my marriage, I decided to reclaim the date by transforming it from a painful memory into something positive. I organized a rebirth day celebration, inviting the people who had supported me through the darkest period of my life. Naomi Amber, my work friend Layla, and several other friends gathered in the backyard of what was now truly my home. I had redecorated over the past year, replacing furniture that held too many difficult memories, painting walls in colors that brought me joy, and creating a space that reflected my personality rather than the compromises of an unbalanced relationship. I want to thank all of you, I said, raising a glass as the evening sun cast a golden glow over our gathering. A year ago, I was quite literally at my breaking point. I believed I had failed because my marriage was ending. What I didn't understand then was that walking away wasn't failure. It was the first step towards saving my own life. Naomi wiped away a tear, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "To Talia," she toasted, "the strongest woman I know." As conversation and laughter flowed around me, I took a moment to reflect on the journey of the past year. The woman who had lain in that hospital bed, physically broken and emotionally shattered, would hardly recognize me now. Not because I had become someone new, but because I had reclaimed the person I had always been beneath the weight of a destructive relationship. I had learned to value myself enough to establish and maintain boundaries. I had discovered that being alone was infinitely preferable to being with someone who diminished rather than enhanced my life. I had found that the strength I had always directed toward supporting others could be turned inward for my own healing and growth. Most importantly, I had learned that love, real love, should never require the sacrifice of your health, your dignity, or your sense of self. That lesson, painful as it was to acquire, had fundamentally transformed how I approached all relationships in my life, not just romantic ones. As I looked around at the smiling faces of friends who genuinely cared for me at the home I had reclaimed as my sanctuary, at the evidence of a life rebuilt on a foundation of self-respect and authentic connection, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The words that had once cut so deeply, "You only drain my money and energy," no longer held power over me. In fact, they had become a kind of inverted blessing, the catalyst for a transformation that might otherwise have taken years more suffering to achieve. I had lost a husband, yes, but I had found myself. And in that discovery lay a happiness more genuine and enduring than anything I had experienced before. Have you ever faced a moment where someone's cruel words actually became the turning point that saved you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of overcoming adversity. Remember, sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the beginning of something far better than you could have imagined. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the strength to recognize your own worth always.